When the call came, I was elbow deep in a German shepherd's abdomen. The dog had swallowed half a rubber toy, and my focus was absolute until my assistant banged on the OR door, breathless. "Claire, it's your mom. She says it's urgent." I paused, heart-skipping. My mother didn't use the word urgent unless she meant drama or death. I stripped off my gloves, muttered an apology to the tech, and took the phone. "Claire, it's about your father. He's gone." The words didn't hit like a freight train. No, they slid in like a scalpel sharp, sterile, clean. "When?" "Just this morning. He collapsed in the garden. They couldn't revive him." I exhaled slowly. 8 years. 8 years I'd been there. Through chemo, through physical therapy, through every damn cardiology appointment. And I wasn't there for the final moment. "I'm driving up tonight," I said, already untying my apron. "No need. Nick's already on his way." Nick. My little brother who hadn't been home in 6 years, who sent flowers instead of showing up, who texted me once a year on Christmas with a generic, "Hope you're well." I clenched my jaw. I'm still coming. The drive to Portland was a familiar one. The coast road curved like memory, sometimes beautiful, sometimes sickening. When I pulled into the driveway of the house I'd helped maintain for a decade, Nick's sports car was already there. It gleamed with that careless shine money gives people who didn't earn it. Inside, Mom sat like a marble statuesque, unmoving. "You took your time," she said without looking up. I left in the middle of surgery. Nick was lounging on the couch, phone in hand, suit pressed and perfect. "Hey sis," he said like he was returning from a quick coffee run instead of a 6-year absence. I ignored him. "What's the plan for the funeral?" "Already arranged," Mom said. Nick helped. I turned to her. "I've been here for every decline, every doctor, every bill, and you planned it without me?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were dry and cold. "You're always so emotional, Claire. We didn't want the stress." I blinked. That's when I knew something was wrong. 2 days later, after the burial and the performative grief of extended family, Mom called us into the study. A man I didn't recognize stood by her side. "This is Mr. Ellison," she said. "He's your father's estate attorney." I glanced at Nick. He looked bored. "There's a revised will," Mr. Ellison began. "Signed 3 weeks ago." "Revised?" "As per the new terms, the house, retirement accounts, and investments transfer fully to Nicholas Donovan." Silence. I blinked. "Excuse me?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "Your father amended the will shortly before his passing. The rationale cited was Nicholas's current financial need and your self-sufficiency." I looked at my mother. She couldn't meet my eyes. "You always said you didn't care about money," she murmured. "You're independent, Claire. You'll be fine." I stood. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked out of the house I'd cleaned, repaired, sacrificed for. And as I closed the door behind me, I knew I wasn't walking away. I was preparing for war. It was early Saturday when I pulled into the driveway of my own home, heart hammering as if I were the one trespassing. I had parked 2 blocks away, just in case Vanessa was already there, with a battalion of caterers and fake smiles. My sneakers barely made a sound on the flagstone path I had personally laid down, stone by heavy stone. I opened the front door quietly. No signs of life, no sounds of plates clinking or flowers being arranged. Relief washed over me, but only briefly. Because in that silence, I realized how close I had come to losing the sanctuary I'd built with my own 2 hands. I walked through the kitchen and paused at the island-polished quartz, veined like marbleware strangers were supposed to assemble charcuterie boards and canapes in less than a week. My stomach twisted. I opened a drawer and pulled out the spare key my parents had. I had once given it to them during a medical scare 2 years ago, never imagining they'd use it as an invitation to redistribute my home like it was some family heirloom. It was time to change the locks. No more pretending this was just a misunderstanding. It was a violation known that needed to be answered. Before I made any calls, I checked my security footage. Vanessa had indeed been there. Friday morning, she had let in the event planner and 2 catering reps. They walked through my garden and entered the home, touched my doorknobs, peered into my sunroom. The planner even had the gall to take measurements of my living room. The event planner had taken selfies in my foyer mirror. I watched them on camera, stunned, as Vanessa waltzed through my sanctuary like a showroom. At one point, she laughed loud, confident. She said, "It's basically my second home, you know? My sister's a bit eccentric, but she won't care." My fist clenched so hard the remote nearly snapped. By noon, the locksmith arrived. Raphael, a broad-shouldered man with calloused hands and kind eyes, listened to me in silence. "Family trouble?" he asked, not unkindly. "Betrayal," I replied. "And a party no one asked me to throw?" He nodded like he'd heard it before. "We'll change out everything. High-grade smart locks. Facial recognition if you want it." "Just keep them out," I whispered. While Raphael got to work, I called Olivia. "It's happening," I said. "You changing the locks?" "Every single one." "Damn right you are. Want me to come over with snacks and emotional support?" "Yes, bring wine and maybe a taser." Olivia showed up with a tote full of snacks, 2 bottles of red, and a look on her face that meant war. We sat in the garden, watching Raphael install the last security cam. "What's your next move?" she asked. "Storage unit. I'm clearing out my valuables." "Planning to vanish?" "Just preparing for the storm." Because I knew Vanessa. If she was bold enough to distribute digital invites with my garden in the background, she'd be bold enough to show up anyway, with guests and excuses and crocodile tears. I wasn't just locking them out. I was locking myself in for the first time in years. Later that night, I received a text from Vanessa. "Hey, heard you changed the locks? What's going on? This is making things really awkward. Can we talk?" No apology, no acknowledgement, just the audacity of a woman caught stealing who's upset you took the jewelry box back. Then another message. "Mom and Dad said you're being dramatic. You're not actually mad, are you?" I didn't respond. 2 minutes later, "Fine. Be childish. Just remember, when this ruins everything for Bradley, it's on you." And that was it the moment I deleted her number. Not because I was over it, but because I wasn't playing the game anymore. She'd stepped on my neck for the last time. The next morning, Olivia and I drove to the storage unit. We packed my art pieces, family heirlooms, important documents, and anything remotely breakable or irreplaceable. "Feels like a heist," she joked, lifting my grandmother's porcelain vase with gloved hands. "It is," I said, "but we're stealing my peace back." As we locked the unit behind us, I felt lighter, safer, focused. Back at the house, Raphael handed me the new keys and a slick, modern remote. "Only 2 copies exist. Yours, and the one you designate." "Perfect. If they try to force entry, the system will call the police automatically." "Let it." I stood at the threshold of my front door. The lock clicked. The bolt slid. My sanctuary was finally mine again. Only this time, I wasn't afraid to defend it. They came on a Sunday. I was watering the lavender bush near the front steps when I heard a car door slam too loud, too entitled. Through the slats of the hedge, I spotted the trio. Mom in a pink blazer like she was hosting brunch, Dad in his golf cap, and Vanessa with sunglasses perched high on her head like a tiara. They didn't knock. They tried the door. It didn't budge. I took one more deep breath, set down the watering can, and stepped around the hedges just in time to hear my mother say, "She changed the locks? That's absurd." "Absurd," my father echoed like a parrot. "She's obviously having a breakdown," Vanessa added. "This whole thing is a cry for help." I crossed my arms. Or maybe it's a boundary. They turned as one, startled. Claire, we were just trespassing, I interrupted. Uninvited, unwelcome. Don't be dramatic, Mom scoffed. We needed to talk. That's what phones are for. You texted. I ignored you. That's your answer. Vanessa took a step forward, lips curled in a practiced pout. You're really going to ruin the entire event over this? Bradley's engagement party is in 6 days. Let me be very clear, I said, stepping closer. There will be no party in my house. We already sent the invites, she hissed. Then you can unsend them. My father put a hand on her shoulder. Claire, sweetheart, be reasonable. We just thought, since you're not using the place. I nearly laughed. Not using it? I live here. It's just a house, my mother snapped. No, it's my house. Bought, maintained, cleaned, paid for, alone, for 10 years. They stared, blinking like I'd spoken in a foreign tongue. We raised you, Dad said lamely. And I repaid that debt 100 times over. I didn't take a single vacation for 5 years because I was covering your medical bills. I gave up a job in Boston to stay nearby. I spent birthdays alone so you wouldn't have to spend treatments alone. And this is how you repay me? Vanessa folded her arms. You're being hysterical. I looked straight at her. You stole my keys, entered my home without permission, scheduled a party and hired Vendersol without speaking to me. That's not hysterical. That's criminal. She paled. Go home, I said. Claire, don't do this, Mom said. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other like property. When they didn't move, I pulled out my phone. You have 10 seconds before I call the police. You wouldn't, Dad said, eyes narrowing. 10. Claire. 9. Vanessa's face flushed. Fine. We're leaving. You've made your point. I didn't lower the phone until their car turned the corner. Back inside, I locked the door and leaned against it, shaking not from fear, but fury. They had shown their true faces. Not just selfish, not just entitled, but shameless. I poured a glass of water and took it to the sunroom. From there, I could see the garden where they had stood, where they had planned to celebrate someone else's love at the expense of mine. Not anymore. My phone buzzed. A message from Olivia. Did they come? I typed back. Yes. And I sent them packing. She replied with a single emoji. A sword. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word, every insult cloaked in concern, every lie Vanessa had told, every time I had swallowed my voice just to keep the peace. Never again. I opened my laptop and started writing. The title came first. The Will I Never Signed, How I Took Back My Life from the Living. I didn't know where the story would go, but I knew where it started. Right here. With me finally saying, no more. Monday morning brought fog and silence, the kind that settles over a place like a held breath. I opened the curtains, half expecting to see another ambush on the lawn, but the street was empty. Until noon. That's when the letter arrived. It wasn't a text, not an email, not a voicemail left under the veil of guilt. No, it was a thick, cream-colored envelope slid under my door like a cease and desist. The handwriting on the front was unmistakably my mother's. Inside, a letter. Claire, we don't understand what's happening. You've always been so helpful, reliable, sensible. Now you're acting like a stranger. This isn't the daughter we raised. Vanessa is devastated. We need to fix this. Come to dinner tonight, 7 p.m., at the house. Love, Mom. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. I didn't want to go. But I did. Not to be obedient. Not for closure. I went for clarity. For the confrontation they clearly thought they were ready for. The family home hadn't changed. Same beige walls. Same framed photos where Vanessa's college graduation had a spotlight, and mine was tucked in the hallway. They were waiting at the table, all three. "Claire," my father said, standing like I was a guest. "Come sit." Vanessa didn't look up. She was swirling her wine like it held answers. I sat. "We're worried," Mom began. "This rebellion, it isn't you. It is me," I said. "You've just never met her." Dad huffed. "So, this is about punishing us?" "No, this is about protecting myself." Vanessa finally looked at me. "From us?" I met her stare. "You stole my home, my time, my patience. You've treated me like a convenience, not a sister." Tension spiked like a dropped dish. "I didn't steal anything," she spat. "You planned a party at my house without asking. You told people it was our estate." She flushed. "That was for optics. Bradley's family doesn't care about lies. You do." "Enough," Dad said. "You will let us use the house. Just for the party. Then we'll move on." There it was. The command disguised as compromise. "No." "Claire." I said no. Mom narrowed her eyes. "Then you leave us no choice." "What does that mean?" "We spoke to our lawyer," Dad said. "If you won't cooperate, we'll pursue a legal right to the property." I blinked. "You want to sue me for my own house?" "It's for the family," Vanessa whispered. I stood. "I have news for you all," I said, calm as steel. "There is no family without respect. You want war over a party? Fine. You'll get one. But you'd better be ready for the consequences." And then I walked out. They called after me. But I was already gone. That night, I didn't cry. I planned. The next morning, I brewed my coffee with hands steadier than I expected. There was something oddly freeing about hearing your family threaten legal action. It snaps the final thread of illusion, the one that says blood means loyalty, or that obligation is the same as love. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up my file labeled Mitchell House. Every permit, every receipt, every inspection report meticulously organized. Because I knew, deep down, they would try this. The first call I made was to Marcus Lane, a real estate attorney recommended by Olivia. When I explained the situation, he didn't sound surprised, just tired. "This happens more than you'd think," he said. "Families, property, entitlement. You got the title in your name? Free and clear. Then they don't have a case. But it doesn't mean they won't try to scare you into thinking they do." "Let them try," I said, and meant it. By Thursday, Marcus had reviewed every document and drafted a formal cease and desist letter, not just to Vanessa, but to my parents too. A legal warning. Stay off the property. Do not misrepresent ownership. Do not distribute keys. Violators will be prosecuted. I signed it with a flourish. I'd thought delivering the letter would feel like revenge, but it didn't. It felt like protection. Marcus had one more piece of advice. If they come after you publicly, or try to use social media to spin this, you have a right to respond. But don't engage emotionally. Respond with facts. So I gathered more. Screenshots of Vanessa's party posts. A copy of the party invitation with my address. Text messages from vendors asking about setup times. Even the video footage of her trying the door, then swearing at the camera when it didn't open. I archived everything in a cloud folder titled Contingency. Because the gloves were off now. On Friday, the email started. First from Mom. Curt, distant. "You've embarrassed this family. Your father is furious. Vanessa can't eat. I hope you're happy." Then Vanessa. "Do you really need to be this dramatic? It's not like we broke anything. We just needed a space for one afternoon. You always make things harder than they need to be." And finally, Dad. "I hope you enjoy your fortress of solitude. Just remember who'll be signing your inheritance papers." That one made me laugh out loud. I typed back, "Don't worry, Dad. I'm not waiting for a will. I'm writing my own." I didn't hit send. I didn't need to. That weekend, Olivia and I sat on my porch swing, sipping wine while my phone buzzed in the background like a hive of angry bees. "You think they'll really sue?" she asked. "They'll threaten it, but Marcus says they don't have a legal leg to stand on." Olivia raised her glass. "To paper trails and ironclad locks?" We clinked. My phone buzzed again. Another email, this one with the subject line, "Family Reconciliation Proposal." I rolled my eyes. "Want to place bets on whether it includes a clause about house access?" Let's just say I wouldn't bet the porch swing on it. I opened it. It was from Vanessa, a PDF attachment. I skimmed it and froze. The document Vanessa sent was a PDF titled Mutual Agreement, Claire and Family. I should have closed it immediately. But curiosity, that treacherous itch, won. I opened it. There, it was several pages of sugar-coated manipulation disguised as legal diplomacy. The opening paragraph spoke of reconciliation and mutual respect. The next promised that, in exchange for shared use of the Mitchell house for pre-approved events, they would formally cease any legal action. But the real kicker was on page 4. Clause 6b. In the event of unforeseen medical, financial, or emotional hardship within the family, Claire Mitchell agrees to act as the primary emergency contact and financial sponsor, within reasonable limits as determined by the family committee. Family committee? I burst out laughing. It wasn't the joyful kind. It was the bitter, sharp laugh that escapes when the absurdity of the world piles up too high to carry. I forwarded the PDF to Marcus with one line. "Please advise how many clauses I can sue them over." He called within 10 minutes, barely containing his disbelief. "They want to turn you into their personal safety net with legal backing?" "Exactly." He whistled. "Claire, this isn't just manipulative, it's dangerous. If you signed that, you'd be financially liable for anything they deem an emergency." I didn't respond right away. I was reading the fine print again. Clause 6c. It referenced a good faith effort to reintegrate family holidays in person. "I want to respond," I finally said, "but publicly." "You sure?" Marcus asked. "They might retaliate." "I'm counting on it." I wrote a short post on my social media. Just a paragraph. "If your family sends you a reconciliation agreement with clauses about controlling your home, your holidays, and your bank account, that's not peace. That's coercion. Love doesn't come with terms and conditions." It went viral. Thousands of comments poured in, people sharing similar stories, others outraged on my behalf. The post landed on a blog about toxic family dynamics, then a podcast, then the local news. I became, unintentionally, a face for adult children breaking free. Vanessa texted me one word, "Unbelievable," followed by, "You humiliated us." I didn't answer. Mom emailed, "You've twisted the truth and turned the internet against your family." Dad sent a voicemail. I didn't listen. I let the silence speak for me. For once, I didn't feel the need to explain. I felt free. It started with the knock. A loud, aggressive knock on Olivia's front door at 7 in the morning. She was already at work, so I grabbed my robe and checked the doorbell camera. My mother, my father, and Vanessa. No warning, no call, just fury in designer coats. I didn't answer. I watched through the peephole as my mother pounded again. "Claire, open this door. We are not leaving until we talk." I leaned against the wall, heart racing. Olivia's guest house was mine temporarily, but it wasn't meant for a siege. They stayed for 20 minutes. Vanessa shouted through the door, "You turned us into a circus. You made us look like abusers. I lost clients because of your post." My father added, "And your mother hasn't slept in 3 days." I didn't move. Eventually, they left, but not quietly. That afternoon, a journalist called. The post had gone so viral, a popular women's magazine wanted to interview me. At first, I hesitated. But then, I thought about all the people who had commented things like, "I thought I was alone." Reading this gave me the courage to say no. So I said yes. 2 days later, the article dropped. The will I never signed. One woman's stand against family control. It was respectful, honest, raw, and it painted a picture of my family that was uncomfortably accurate. Then came the backlash. Vanessa posted her own carefully curated statement on social media. Family disputes should remain private. I'm devastated that personal issues have been made public. I love my sister. I just wish she had handled things differently. The comments exploded. Half her followers called her brave. The other half dragged her for passive-aggressive gaslighting. She disabled comments by evening. My parents didn't post anything, but they started a whisper campaign. Mutual friends stopped replying. Distant relatives sent vague, "thinking of you" messages, without context. Then, a letter. Delivered by courier. Cream envelope, heavy paper, no return address. Inside, "Claire, you've made your point. Loudly, publicly, painfully. We understand you feel hurt. But there are ways to heal without burning everything to the ground. You've always been dramatic. We love you. But this is not the way." Mom, Dad. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in the fireplace, and lit a match. Sometimes, ashes are cleaner than memories. The fire didn't die down, it evolved. What began as a spark had become a wildfire, and now people started taking sides, not just online, but in real life too. On a Thursday morning, I stopped by the local cafe I used to love, Della's, the place with lemon scones so good they felt like therapy. I hadn't been since the article went viral. The moment I walked in, the barista Ben, a kind soul with a blue nose ring, froze. "Claire," he said, blinking. "Wow. You're kinda famous." I smiled. "Local famous, maybe." He chuckled nervously. "Right. Listen. My manager said we should avoid taking sides in family drama. So, maybe just a to-go order today?" My smile didn't flinch, but my heart sank. I nodded slowly and walked out without ordering. When I got home, I found a box on my doorstep. No return label. Inside were printed screenshots. My post, the article, angry comments. Scrawled across the top page in red marker. "You brought this on yourself." My hands shook. I texted Olivia. "They're escalating." She replied instantly. "Change security codes again. I'm coming over." We installed new cameras that night, motion sensors, floodlights, the works. Marcus called a day later to say he'd been contacted by someone claiming to represent a reconciliation group that my parents had supposedly joined. They wanted mediation. Mediation? I laughed. Now they want to negotiate after all this? Marcus paused. "Claire, they're trying to regain control. Don't let them. But also, document everything. Every call. Every letter." That weekend, I went to the farmer's market alone. Needed something normal. I was picking out plums when I heard a voice behind me. "Claire Mitchell, right?" I turned. A woman in her late 30s. Stylish. Expensive scarf. "I just wanted to say," she continued, "I read your story. My mother did the same thing to me, controlled everything. When I saw your post, I cried in my office." I blinked. "Thank you." She handed me a card. "I'm a therapist now. I run group sessions for adult children from high-control families. If you ever want to come." I tucked it into my purse like a treasure. The following Monday, I received a package via certified mail. Legal documents this time. Vanessa was suing me for defamation, citing the article, the post, even the comment section. I laughed so hard I cried. Marcus filed a motion to dismiss within 24 hours. "She doesn't have a case," he assured me. "This is a PR stunt, but we'll still need to respond formally." I sat at my desk, rereading her complaint. Then, I did something impulsive. I opened a blank document and started typing. A book. Not a post, not a blog. A memoir. Working title? The Will I Never Signed. Later that week, I received a voicemail from Bradley Vanessa's husband. Calm, soft-spoken. Claire, I don't know if this helps, but I never agreed with any of this. Vanessa is scared. She thinks you're trying to destroy her. I keep telling her she's doing that all on her own. I hope we can talk sometime outside all this noise. I didn't return the call. Not yet. But I saved the message. The following Sunday, I went to church. I hadn't in years. Just felt drawn to quiet. An older woman sat next to me during the sermon. Didn't say a word, but after the final hymn, she leaned over and whispered, "Your story gave my daughter the courage to move out. Thank you." Then she stood and walked away. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. And Vanessa, for all her legal threats, was no longer in control of the narrative. I was. It started on a Wednesday, with a single headline: Court rejects defamation suit, filed by socialite Vanessa Langley. The story broke on a mid-tier news blog, but within hours it was picked up by bigger outlets. By dinner time, the story had trended on Twitter under the Willie Never Signed. That night, Olivia and I sat in her living room, wine glasses untouched. The screen glowed with article after article quoting Marcus, quoting my original post, and analyzing Vanessa's claim. "She thought dragging you into court would silence you," Olivia said. "Instead, she handed you a megaphone." I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, like a battle had ended, but the war wasn't over. The next morning, Vanessa showed up at my house. Yes, me house. I was in the garden trimming the lavender bushes when I saw her Mercedes pull up. No chauffeur, no Bradley. Just her. She stepped out in dark sunglasses, designer coat, hair pulled back like she was attending a funeral. I didn't move. She walked through the open gate, onto my porch, and stopped. "I thought you changed the locks," she said. "I did," I replied. "You're not getting inside." Vanessa exhaled, shoulders stiff. "I didn't come to argue." "Then why are you here?" "To end this." I wiped my hands on my gardening apron and folded my arms. "You mean the lawsuit? The threats? The trespassing? The public shaming?" She flinched. "You made this public." "No, Vanessa. You did when you tried to take something that didn't belong to you. When you refused to take no for an answer. When you told the world I was just being difficult." She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something real behind her eyes. Fear. Not of me. Of consequence. Of being exposed. "I've lost clients," she whispered. "Bradley. He's been staying at a hotel. I'm not the one who needs to fix that." "I know." Her voice cracked. She sat down on the porch steps without asking. I considered telling her to leave, but something in me, maybe pity, maybe closure, let her stay. "I read your manuscript," she said. I blinked. "How?" "Bradley forwarded it. Said it was the most honest thing he'd ever read." I didn't know what stunned me more, that she'd read it, or that Bradley had sent it to her. She looked up at me, eyes red. "The part about our childhood, the way Mom and Dad made me their trophy, and you, their scapegoat. I hated reading that, because it's true." I didn't speak. "I wanted so badly to be perfect," she continued. "To be adored, but I was terrified, every day, that it would all disappear, that I was just a reflection of their approval. And you? You didn't need it. You made your own life. That terrified me too." I sat on the edge of the porch, a few feet from her. "You still tried to take it from me." "I know, I'm sorry. Not the social media post apology, not the 'I'm sorry if you felt hurt' kind. I mean it." Silence stretched between us. Birds chirped. A dog barked in the distance. "What do you want, Vanessa?" I asked finally. "Forgiveness. That's not a request. That's a journey." She nodded. "I'll walk it if you'll let me." I stood up. Start by walking away. Today. She stood too. Okay. As she turned, I added, one more thing. She looked back. I'm publishing the book. I figured. No more secrets, no more pretending. If we're going to rebuild anything, it has to be with the truth out in the open. I understand. And then, for the first time in our adult lives, my sister left my property without expecting to be let in. I watched her go, and I didn't feel angry. I felt free. 3 months later, I stood on the stage at a small literary festival downtown. The modest crowd gathered in the renovated warehouse space, smelled like new books and warm coffee. My book, The Will I Never Signed, sat in neat stacks on a table beside me. It had only been out for a week and already hit the indie bestsellers list. And now, the moderator said, please welcome Samantha Langley, designer, survivor, and author of the memoir that has sparked a national conversation about family, ownership, and boundaries. Applause. I took the podium with shaking hands. Not from fear, at least not the kind that used to control me, but from the weight of finally being seen. I read an excerpt from chapter 5, where I'd first realized that my house wasn't just my home, it was my autonomy. I read through the part where I'd sat alone on the kitchen floor and finally, truly grieved what I'd never had growing up. There were tears in the audience, and not just mine. After the reading, the Q&A began. A woman in the second row asked, "Do you talk to your family now?" I took a breath. Yes, we're not perfect, but we're honest now, and that's a bigger victory than I thought possible. A man in the back raised his hand. What advice do you have for someone who hasn't stood up to their family yet? Start with your voice, I said. Say no. Say it's scared. Say it's shaky. But say it. When the session ended, I stepped away from the podium and was immediately hugged by Olivia. You killed it. I didn't faint, I said, so I'll call it a win. Next came Marcus, holding a signed copy, already gifting it to 3 clients with boundary issues. Then, to my surprise, my parents. Yes, both of them. They looked older, quieter, but not defensive. My mother reached out first. Your words, they opened something we'd kept locked for decades. My father added, I'm sorry it took a book for me to understand you, but I'm glad I finally do. We spoke carefully, as if touching something fragile, but it held. Later that evening, I returned home to find a package on my porch. No name, just a white box with a red ribbon. Inside was a framed photo, and Vanessa, ages 9 and 6, sitting on the front steps of our childhood home, giggling. A sticky note was attached. Maybe we can try again. V. I left the photo on my bookshelf beside my first printed copy of the memoir. I didn't call her that night. I didn't have to. That weekend, I hosted a dinner at my homeowner for show, not for prestige, just a small gathering. Olivia, Marcus, Natalie, Lauren, and eventually, Vanessa. She came late, carrying dessert and uncertainty. We talked, we laughed, we remembered, and we made new memories. As the evening drew to a close, I stood on the porch, glass of wine in hand, watching the sunset paint my street in gold. The house behind me wasn't just manate, was a symbol of earned independence, of claimed identity, of a legacy I chose. The locks had been changed, but the door? It was open to those who respected it, and to the life I'd finally built, by design, not by inheritance.